Okay, the market's now in the red, 5 or 6 points lower is where we find the Nifty at. Time for taking quick stock of what's happening in the commodity space. Manisha's here with just that. Manisha, morning.
Morning, Prashant. Thank you so much for that. It's a second straight day of gains for the metal prices, and it has to do with the weakness in US dollar, expectation of further stimulus from China. That really seems to be bringing all of those metals on the higher side. Nickel actually has been an outperformer, up nearly 3% already for this week, and that really seems to be leading gains in Shanghai and the LME exchanges today as well. Paul Bartholomew of S&P Global Platts now joins us to talk more about that. Paul, hi, good to have you. What is your sense? We've seen some strength come back in case of metals, and this really seems more macro than micro. I mean, we are not talking about the individual fundamentals at all. All we seem to be really focusing on is the global economic data, which hasn't been so supportive. And then, of course, now it is about the China stimulus measures expectation that China is willing to offer more of that. How have you read the scenario?
Yes, hi, Michelle. Yeah, I agree with you. It is very much a case of looking at some of the macroeconomic factors. Seeing whether there was any progress in Washington recently between China and the US. There's definitely a host of stimulus measures being rolled out in China. Obviously, we've seen the triple R cut to sort of like put some liquidity back in the system, but then we're also seeing some individual sectors being targeted. For example, some incentives they haven't been given much detail yet, but they've been announced they're going to happen. So things like trying to stimulate buying of cars, white goods and fridges. So I think we're just almost on a daily basis now. We're seeing different kinds of announcements.
So, Paul, what is your sense? I mean, the markets, as we have seen the reaction, every rally that we have seen in metals has been quite short-lived. As you mentioned, there have been various stimulus measures that we saw from China for various sectors, but that hasn't really supported metals so much. So would you say that there is some intrinsic bearishness or cautiousness that we are seeing in the sector?
Yes, there's definitely some intrinsic bearishness. Nobody's particularly feeling sort of positive, and I think also it's probably just worth mentioning we're in a sort of it's always a bit of a funny time of year now with Chinese New Year around the corner, because the market pretty much shuts down for a good 2 weeks, and that's on February the 4th. So we're only talking to just over a couple of weeks or so away now. And then what normally happens is sometimes you get a bit of restocking, or which doesn't seem to be happening too much this year. But generally speaking, people will just sort of wait until they come back. Particularly at the moment, I think the situation is exacerbated. It's more heightened than usual because there just isn't any sense of where the market direction is going to go. So I think a lot of people are saying, okay, we'll just we won't do too much now until we come back sort of maybe the third week of February, and then we'll see what sort of market conditions are like then.
Paul, one more question. The volumes as well have been quite a disaster, haven't they? Because the last 3 or 4 months, whether you look at the LME or the Shanghai markets, we've seen volumes in metal trade also decline very sharply. So from where we stand now, even the open interest for that matter has been on the weaker side. So right now, I understand the longer time perspective is something that is very, very uncertain. But for this quarter now, where do you see more activity in the metal space?
Yeah, I think in the metal space.
Okay, lost him on that. But, as I was mentioning, the volumes, of course, have seen a lot of decline as well. 30 to 40% of a cut month-on-month basis is what we've seen in many of these metals trading in Shanghai. That tells you that the interest from the investors is just not there when it comes to metals.
Okay, yes, absolutely. Well, point taken, Manisha. Thanks very much for that. So that's the update coming in on the metal space. Even stocks such as JSW Steel a bit soft at this point, down around 1% odd. We'll take a break, but up next we'll discuss the technicals of the market. Ashwini Gujral will be with us as usual, 11:30 a.m. to tell us what he's strategizing today.